Happy New Year and welcome to our worship for January 1st, 2023. This is the first Sunday after Christmas, and our reading for today from the Gospel is Matthew chapter 2. Now, after the wise men had left, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up. Take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt and remain there until I tell you. For Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother by night, and went to Egypt and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I have called my son." When Herod saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, he was infuriated, and he sent and killed all the children in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had learned from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they were no more. When Herod died, an angel of the Lord suddenly appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who were seeking the child's life are dead." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was ruling over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And after being warned in a dream, he went away to the district of Galilee. There he made his home in a town called Nazareth, so that what had been spoken through the prophets might be fulfilled. He will be called a Nazarene. The Gospel of the Lord. According to church growth studies, Christmas is the most promising time of the year for outreach. Everywhere, the coming festivities are being proclaimed by colored lights and blaring carols and department store Santas. People decorate their homes, send out cards, make special dishes and lots of cookies, preserve beloved traditions, and create some new ones. Often, amidst all of that celebration, there are other emotions as well. The pressure to make Christmas perfect for your loved ones, the comparisons between remembered joys and this year's sorrows, sadness about the empty places around your table, left by those you have loved and lost. For some, Christmas stirs up longing for something much more. And it brings an awareness of an emptiness that is not filled by festive gatherings or delicious dinners or gifts underneath the tree. That search for meaning draws some people to turn away from the malls and turn toward the manger. We in church would probably name this as a hunger for God. Now, most people probably are done celebrating Christmas. Most of us keep our trees and decorations out for a few days past Christmas Day. The so-called holiday season seems to start around Thanksgiving or maybe even earlier for some. But for most people, it's officially done by New Year's Day. And in most people's minds, Christmas was over at midnight on December 25th. But for church, the celebration, it was just beginning. Christmas goes from December 25th through January 5th. And then we have the Festival of the Epiphany on January 6th. Through December, we were speaking words of hope and peace and expressing a longing to be touched by the sacred. So then what can I say about today's gospel reading? This story is often called the slaughter of the innocents. It's still Christmas, but this is no sweet story that will tug at your heartstrings. This is a tale of terror. At Christmas, we long for peace on earth. We remember God's promise to reconcile all the world. Our Christmas cards often share that hope of peace and illustrations of the Christ child in the manger, or of Mary and Joseph bathed in soft light. Or maybe even a night scene that's lit by stars. But in the Christmas story from Luke and Matthew, the gospel truth is that Jesus was born into a very violent world. In Matthew, the truth is that Jesus's birth made the world even more dangerous. Matthew doesn't give us any story about the night Jesus was born. He only announces that the baby was born and Joseph named him Jesus. But somehow the word gets out to the rest of the world. Wise men from afar come looking for this one who is heralded as the King of the Jews. And so naturally, they go to Jerusalem, which is the political center of power for Judea. Then King Herod and all of Jerusalem, I take that to mean the movers and shakers of the city, react with fear and violence and resolve. King of the Jews? Herod is king of the Jews. This is treason. And Herod acts quickly to put an end to this challenge to his kingdom. He pretends that he wants to go and worship Jesus himself, and he tells the wise men to come back and report to him. But the wise men are warned in a dream to take a detour and stay away from Herod. When Herod finds out that they've gone home without reporting to him, he's furious, and his paranoia runs wild. This is a king who has murdered his wife and one of his own sons in order to maintain a grip on his power. A man who is determined to hold on to that power by any means necessary. An angel comes to Joseph again with an urgent warning. Herod is on the rampage searching for Jesus. Get out of the country and do it fast. So Joseph packs up his little family and they flee out to Egypt. It's like the Exodus in reverse, as these fugitives from Herod take refuge in the very place that their ancestors once escaped. Meanwhile, back in Judea, Herod goes on a killing spree. Deceived by the wise men, Herod has been frustrated in his plan to hunt down Jesus. So he gives the order to kill every single male child under the age of 2 in the whole region, all around Bethlehem. It's a terrifying display and abuse of power. It's an old story, though, isn't it? This world's tyrants rage and innocent people die. These days, we might call it collateral damage, a bloodless word for the blood shed by those in harm's way. Innocent people, including children, who die in car bombings, or stray bullets out on the street, or by shooters in their classrooms at school, or by human trafficking. Just as Jesus did, we live in a world where innocent people suffer and tyrants get away with murder. It's enough to make you long for God to throw down some thunderbolts or light some avenging fire, or maybe even send a few plagues in the direction of our enemies. Or at the very least, throw up an invisible shield and protect the innocent children. But God does not oppose violence with more violence. God does not protect us from the consequences of human freedom. So innocent people suffer and they die as this world's tyrants rage. But the good news? Terror is not the last word. Not for Herod and not for us. While Herod is raging in Jerusalem, the center of power, God is working out on the margins, sending messengers in dreams and accompanying refugees as they flee through the night. Herod's murderous violence is twice defeated. He doesn't kill Jesus. One day, Herod himself dies, and then the exiles return home. Terror will not have the last word. Sometimes that's hard for us to believe. Sometimes it seems like there's no limit to the evil that human beings will visit upon one another, no end to the suffering of God's holy innocence. Terror will not have the last word. God keeps bringing Jesus back to us after the tyrants think that he's been destroyed. Herod rages, but Jesus comes back from Egypt to Galilee. The Roman authorities execute him, but God brings Jesus back through death into new life. Terror is not the last word for God, and so it is not the last word for us. Jesus goes into the darkness with us, enters the violence of our world. Christ is there with every father afraid for his children's safety, with every terrified woman who is fleeing a violent home, with every refugee seeking a safe haven. God is at work in violent places, at work in the witness of peacemakers, in prison ministries, in congregations that bring hope and light into troubled places. Today, God calls each one of us to join that work of love, to stand for peace in our world, our country, neighborhoods, households, and especially in our own hearts. Thanks be to God. Terror is not the last word for us. The Word made flesh, the first and the last, Jesus the Christ, is with us always. Emmanuel. Amen.